Welcome to Nguyen Nam Podcast channel. You can't ignore a Vizsla. The Vizsla was developed by the Magyars, Asian nomads who swept into Europe after the disintegration of the Roman Empire and established a home base in the land now called Hungary. The Magyars were a kingdom on horseback, one whose fierce, lightning-fast cavalry charges routed the plotting armies of Western Europe as far afield as France. The fortunes of these marauding horsemen depended on breeding mounts of great speed, endurance, and maneuverability, traits the Magyars also bred into their dogs. Magyar chieftains were proud men, sensitive to the barbarian label hung on them by the Romanized peoples they conquered. They strove to acquire the trappings of nobility, the better to meet on equal footing the rulers of post-empire Europe. And, as the ancient Egyptians taught the Romans 1,000 years before, a nobleman looks a bit nobler with an elegant dog by his side. During centuries of European upheavals, this elegance never left the breed, and it arrived in the United States intact. And there's not a big difference between the elegance seen in the ring today and in the photos of the early foundation dogs from Europe, according to breed historian Marion Kaufman, of Ocala, Florida. Elegance is a word that crops up constantly among fanciers, almost as often as the word versatile. Kaufman, who bred the first AKC triple champion of any breed, is so enamored with Vizsla versatility that she recites the dictionary definition by rote, capable of adapting easily from one to another of various tasks, and the Vizsla fits that description. The American servicemen had been to Europe, and those hunters among them had seen, firsthand, the efficacy of the now so-called continental breeds, which include the German short-haired and wire-haired pointers, Weimaraners, Britonnis, Vizslos, and wire-haired pointing griffons. These were all marvelous, utilitarian breeds that put the game on the tables of those American hunters who were fortunate enough to own a specimen. After World War II, the Allies divided the continent of Europe into spheres of democratic and communist influence. Winston Churchill coined the phrase Iron Curtain to describe the grim isolation of Soviet satellite states in the central and eastern sectors. The communist regime in Budapest was notoriously repressive. Hungarian patriots resisted in every way they knew, including wholesale revolt. Some refugees resolutely found ways to steal across the border with their dogs to find a better way of life, according to Vizsla breeder Ann Dinahy in a 2000 Gazette article. There are many stories of valorous Hungarians attempting to flee with their beloved Vizslas, some of whom lost their lives in the effort. Sari was a Vizsla owned by a refugee who smuggled her into Rome. Frail and emaciated from the ordeal, Sari recuperated nicely and was bred. Meanwhile, her owner gained passage to Israel, only to discover that Sari would be barred entry. Vizslas in the U.S. Emmett Scanlon was a U.S. State Department employee posted in Rome. He heard of Sari and contacted his friend and Kansas City dogman Frank Tallman. The Vizsla was a breed known only by reputation in the United States, and Tallman was intrigued. Sari and her pups, Tito and Shasta, were flown from Rome to Kansas City. They arrived stateside in 1950, the first of many bootlegged imports who became the foundation of the Vizsla in America. Tallman received AKC permission to exhibit Sari and her pups in the miscellaneous classes at the 1951 Heart of America Kennel Club show. It was the breed's debut in the U.S. show ring. A year later, Sari again made history by whelping the first American-bred Vizslas. The club that would be renamed the Vizsla Club of America was formed in 1953. Tallman was president, and Scanlon was vice president. Today's breed fancy acknowledges a debt to them and others who planted the Vizsla in America. They focused their energies on the many detailed steps required to develop the bloodlines, gathering available pedigrees, of which almost none existed after the war, and providing the necessary generations of documented pedigrees to satisfy recognition requirements.